thanks for tuning in once again. I'm Ishmael Sistrunk from the St. Louis American and stlamerican.com. With me today I have Palmer Alexander III, our Rams Roundup correspondent, and this is your Rams Roundup. The St. Louis Rams had a matchup against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 3. But first, before we talk about that, Palmer, we didn't get a chance to do a roundup last week for the Buccaneers, so I wanted to do a very brief recap of that game because I think some themes are going to tie into what we saw this week as well.
Absolutely.
So in Week 2, we saw the St. Louis Rams emerge victorious 19-17 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Palmer, after the first week, that disappointing loss, we were both very down on the Rams. Didn't see how they could turn around and win, but they did. How did they end up doing that?
Well, I mean, it started with great quarterback play from Austin Davis. I mean, a stark contrast in the way that he played against Minnesota. He didn't turn the ball over. He made some very timely throws. There were some balls that were dropped, but when he needed plays to be made, Austin Pez made that big 27-yard catch. And then, listen, Greg Zerline, I've been on him a lot. You got to give him credit. I mean, he made 4 field goals in some rotten weather circumstances, so you got to give your hats off. They executed when they needed to, and they came out with a victory on the road.
Yeah, and Austin Davis in that game, 22 completions, 22 out of 29, 235 yards. Looked very well. A lot of people said they attributed that to him getting that full week of practice with the first team, those reps.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a difference?
Yeah, and I think so. Not only that, is that, the way he played during the preseason, you saw that in the Cleveland game, the way he was able to push the ball down the field and just kind of, get some of these guys believing in what he was able to do, showing his mobility, showing a little bit of fire about himself. So, he won a game in adverse conditions. Everybody knows Tampa is not a very good football team at this moment, but they was able to go on the road and pick up a win in a hostile environment, which was very good, very encouraging.
Yeah, and another bright spot, which we're seeing continuously, we're going to talk about him in the Dallas game. Brian Quick has emerged. This is that third season. We see a lot of times wide receivers, it takes them a full 2 years before they get it together. Yeah. And it looks like he's the next third-year receiver to have a breakout season. He looks a lot more confident. He's catching a lot more balls. In that game, he had 7 receptions, 74 yards. And he is seemingly the leading receiver for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's stepping up, and listen, this is what we was expecting out of Brian Quick when he first came into St. Louis, but it's taken him a little bit more time to get more acclimated, I guess, to an NFL playbook, and he's doing well with the responsibilities being put on his shoulder. And listen, I think the addition of Kenny Britt has helped him out to a huge degree because he's playing with a lot more confidence and as they always say, is he's playing without thinking. I mean, you could tell he was kind of thinking, walk through the paces. I mean, he's had a great start to the season, but I want to see how he's going to adjust when teams start keying on him as the season goes along.
Okay, well, how do you think then, since we're talking about the Buccaneers game, how do you think the Rams will fare against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 3?
I think, well, they play a great 30 minutes of football.
So let's segue. We don't want to dwell on the past too long, although, we do have to give the Rams props, give them credit for that game. Again, both of us thought they were going to lose that game. They went in to Tampa, got a victory, impressive, nice comeback, nice showing by Austin Davis. The Cowboys in Week 3, this was a tale of two halves, as you sort of hinted at.
Yeah.
The Rams started out up 21-0. Thought that game was in the bag. Thought they had it won. Thought it was done, over with. But, as we've seen so many times in the past, you get your hopes up high only to get them crushed back down to the ground. Why was this a tale of two halves? Why did they start out so fast and end so poorly?
Well, I mean, listen, I know it's not often I give Brian Schottenheimer credit, And I mean, that first half, the way that the offense was moving the ball, up and down the football field, they looked like an NFL offense is supposed to do. I mean, they was actually running outside, getting on the perimeter. In the first 2 games of the season, I mean, they constantly running up between the center and the guard. You know, to me, they looked scared trying to run out on the perimeter. But this time, he did a better job of getting guys on the outside, screens, getting the ball in Zach Stacy's hands in a multitude of different ways. They had the nice rotation with Benny Cunningham and then also Trey Watts getting some reps and looking pretty decent back there, giving them that change of pace, at running back. So you have to, listen, I have to give them credit. But one thing that I would prefer that they stop doing, I think they need to just do away with the reverse. I mean, because they run the same reverse every game. Either they do it with Chris Givens, or they do it now with Kenny Britt. Or if they don't do it with Kenny Britt, they do it with Jared Cook. If they don't do it with Jared Cook, they're going to just...
But that's a different reverse. When you got a tight end reverse,
yes,
nobody is expecting that.
Yes.
That's the best play call ever. You get the biggest dude that ever touches the ball and probably the slowest. Which Jared Cook is fast for a tight end, but
straight line.
That amazed me to see Jared Cook running a reverse, and I couldn't believe it. And I guess it was they wanted to get that surprise. Hey, you're not expecting this one, and it didn't really pan out.
The only person that was surprised were the Dallas Cowboys, because the Dallas Cowboys were surprised that how could you call such a stupid play? We've seen this play, for the last, 35 games since Brian Shanahan's been the offensive coordinator. I mean, everybody knows you're going to go to that play. It's one of the most predictable plays in the playbook, and you're going to see it at least 4 or 5 times throughout the game. So, a little bit of advice. Maybe you should stop using the play.
I disagree. I think they need to keep the play, need to run the play more. That's what people said. You need to get so-and-so the ball more. Get Tavon Austin the ball more. Do the reverse more. It's going to work eventually. Okay, so, let's talk about Austin Davis again. Another solid game. He did have some key mistakes, but 30 for 42, 327 yards, 3 touchdowns, did have the 2 interceptions. Yeah. But we're starting to see continued growth from Austin Davis. Everybody was worried, concerned when Hill went down. Man, Davis really hadn't shown us too much.
Right.
But he's maturing very quickly as a quarterback. And it'll be interesting to me to see when Hill does come back. I know that Jeff Fisher has said Sean Hill's our guy. But Hill is getting momentum, put them in a position to win this week. So will there be a quarterback controversy brewing?
I think there can be, until Jeff Fisher just says, you know what, I think we need to stick with Austin Davis, because I know it's 2 games, and I know they're not going to erect the statue in his honor downtown, okay? But I will say this much. I think from a leadership standpoint, from him just being able, again, galvanize this offense, getting guys excited about playing football. I mean, this offense is dull. This offense is ugly on the eyes, to be perfectly honest. I mean, listen, they scored 34 points. They could have definitely had more, but they was able to move the ball efficiently. I mean, pushing the ball down the field, nice mix between the run and the pass. I used to always say, listen, I don't want them throwing the ball over 20, 25 times. But after that first game against Minnesota, actually the last preseason game in Miami, and then, the first game against Minnesota, Austin Davis was holding on the ball way too long. But you see the progression in this young player. And then, it does give you some hope. So, if you can take something positive out of that football contest, is that now you may be looking at something special at the quarterback position. And I think he gives you a better chance to win over Sean Hill. I think if Fisher decides to play Sean Hill, and especially play him, against a 3-0 Philadelphia team, and I know we're going to get into that, but I just think it does a disservice to the chemistry that he is building and the goodwill he's building with the offense.
All right, so let's talk about the running game a little bit. We saw a three-pronged attack this week. We saw Zach Stacy, who got a bulk of the carries. Benny Cunningham, Trey Watts got into the mix, and they all ran the ball pretty well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, and that's another encouraging sign. I mean, you got three different guys that have, you got two guys that have similar styles. I think Cunningham is a shade faster than Zach Stacy, but Zach Stacy has the ability to be able to elude a tackler. He's a better catcher. I bet he does better at catching the ball out of the backfield. He's great in the blitz pickup, and I think that is an Achilles heel of Trey Mason. That's why he may spend the entire season, with a baseball hat on his head. And so those guys coming in there being able to execute the offense and being able to keep the chains moving forward, keeping them in manageable down situations, that's what you want. And I mean, listen, that's one aspect of this team that you expect. And listen, got to give credit to the offensive line too, because the first two games I thought they were awful, but they played a lot better against Dallas. And I mean, you do have some encouraging signs. The play of Austin Davis, the play of the running backs. You can also attribute that to the play of the offensive line, which played pretty good. With the exception of Scott Wells' snap. I mean, that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, definitely a miscommunication, if you will. There, it looks like he was hiking, thought it was under center when it was a shotgun play. Talked about the offensive line. Let's talk about the defensive line. This is a unit that came in with a lot of hype, expectations of getting at the quarterback. Of course, we know that Long has been injured. He's going to be out for a little while. But no sacks in this game. And if there was a game where I thought the St. Louis Rams would get to the quarterback, I thought it would be against Tony Romo. Now, he's a mobile guy, but he likes to hold the ball in the pocket. He likes to run around a little bit. And so he's usually vulnerable for a couple of sacks each game. Why weren't the Rams able to get to him?
Basically, I got to give Cowboys credit too of doing a good job sustaining the pass rush. But the one thing that I was noticing on almost every time when the Cowboys attempted to pass the ball, all the pass rushes are going upfield. So both of the tackles are like folding in almost like a book. So that's creating lanes for Tony Romo to step up into and to make plays. What the Rams got to start doing better is getting a push and pushing the pocket up instead of having the pocket collapse like a book. And the other thing, listen, Robert Quinn was a non-factor in that football game, and I mean, he was, like I said, he reminded me of a big wheel. When you ride a big wheel and it don't have no more tread on it, ain't going no damn where. And so, and there's no spare tires for a big wheel on a concrete sidewalk. We all know that. I mean, you got to be able to get there. And then the other thing is with the scheme. I mean, it was noted out, by Matt Bowen. Okay, about what the Rams like to do in these third down situations. And as sure as feces don't stink, okay, they went to this exact same package that he talked about. The Rams used it in the Minnesota game, and they used that in the game against Tampa Bay. So again, it's from a schematic standpoint, you expect your coordinator you got to come with something different, because you cannot think that it worked this week, it's going to work the next week, because you're going against different lines, different types of personnel. So again, what I'm talking about, where he has both the safeties bail out, and it looks like he's going to overload the line, and then he drop his safety backs and then start to blitz these corners from the outside. They was picking it up. They wasn't getting any pressure. And Dallas was getting them on it. They was gashing them on it. You have to make better adjustments. You can't just keep running the same play and think it's going to work every week. You have to learn how to be able to adjust. I think they did a terrible job in that aspect.
Now, what about the secondary? We saw some highs and lows. You saw Janoris Jenkins make a wonderful interception, pick six, took it back to the house. But then you saw the play where Dez Bryant was running wide open. The best player on the team is wide open 20 yards behind the nearest man.
Yeah.
How do you think that unit did as a whole?
I mean, that was awful. I mean, that was absolutely awful. That's absolutely awful. Listen, there are certain guys that you never let them out of your sight under no circumstances whatsoever. Now, McLeod came up And he shouldn't have, I think it was a miscommunication between Janoris Jenkins and McLeod, because the way Jenkins was standing there play, it was as if he was letting Des Bryant get free release and then let McLeod, provide the help up top. But if Jenkins was probably paying more attention to Bryant and was running with him, then you would have a bracket where, therefore, you got Jenkins here, you have Bryant there, and then you have McLeod. So, I mean, where's Tony Romo going to throw the football? Other thing, there was no pass rush on that play. He had all day to throw that football. So that was a total breakdown in, with the secondary. Obviously, it's miscommunication. The other thing with Janoris Jenkins, he made a great interception, jumping around, but then he get called for the pass interference. Okay, and one of the problems that he always has, he never looks back and track the football. I mean, at least one time, I swear, if you see the wide receiver and the wide receiver turns his head, there's probably maybe a 100% chance the ball is on the way. Okay, it's probably 100% chance the ball is on the way. I mean, you gotta get this right. And EJ Gaines, as much praise that we give him for being able to tackle in the open field. I mean, he turns his shoulder sideways. I mean, like a Broadway dancer, Fiddler on the Roof, and then he gets hurt by DeMarco Murray. I mean, I don't understand this. And then LaMarcus Joyner goes into the game, and the instant he goes to the game, he gets a pass interference penalty, in the end zone. So these guys gotta get these kinks worked out. I mean, because the defense is supposed to be better than this. I mean, we depended on this defense. I mean, that was the one thing that I didn't worry about. A lot of us didn't worry about. But now this is becoming a big concern.
Now, here's one thing I'm gonna say. Since you brought up penalties, and you brought up some of the penalties that were called against the Rams, and rightfully so. I think those pass interference calls were valid. But this is the second straight week where we have seen atrocious calls against the St. Louis Rams.
Absolutely.
Potentially game-changing. The one against Tampa Bay, there was a roughing the passer penalty against Jolon Dunbar, where he basically, was going to block the pass and get the tackle. Soon as a quarterback released the ball, he fell on him, which is what you do when you're in the air, and they called roughing the passer. Luckily, the Rams were able to escape with that victory, but I don't know if you know, but he also got fined by the league for roughing the passer. I think like $16,000, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Well, this week, I think a big part of that Cowboys comeback, and the Rams definitely made some missteps and made some bad plays that attributed to the loss. But I think the two penalties against Eugene Sims were just ridiculous and really hurt the Rams. You had the one in the second half before halftime where, which one was that? That was the one.
Yeah, that was the alleged roughing the passer.
Right, and that's where he basically slapped Tony Romo on the shoulder. Slapped him on the shoulder. May have just gingerly brushed his helmet. They called roughing the passer. That's 15 yards. The Cowboys ended up getting a field goal, getting in a much better position, getting a field goal, which made it 21-10 going into the half, as opposed to 21-7. The Rams may have got the ball. Who knows? They could have driven down and scored or got a field goal or something like that. The second one was in the fourth quarter, late in the game, where he was called with the holding. And basically what he did was chuck the receiver. Receiver was, releasing out to catch a pass. Just chucked him, which is what you do. Bump and run defense. You get 5 yards to chuck the receiver. He's behind the line of scrimmage, so it's perfectly legal. And you get a holding call, which, again, is one of the worst calls that I've seen in my life. And that one had more of an impact because the Rams would have gotten the ball back. That would have set up a 3rd and 19 or
I think it was 3rd and 25. It would have been like 3rd and 25 or something.
Yeah, something like that, which means the Rams would have got the ball back more than likely, and they would have had ample time on the clock to set up a drive towards the end of the game. How does this happen week in and week out? And it's not even just the Rams games, but the officials are just making horrible, terrible calls, and it seems like there's no repercussions, nothing is happening, there's no accountability. We saw the 49ers complain. Patrick Willis had a pretty bad roughing the passer call against him. We saw in the Jets game, they had a call, the fumble, where it was deemed down by contact, and they lost a touchdown by that. I mean, how much is officiating marring these games?
And listen, it's big, and it's all throughout the league. I think the officiating was better when they had replacement refs, a few years back. But, a lot of these penalties that occur to the St. Louis Rams, they are what I call perception penalties. Perception penalties because the Rams are one of the most penalized teams in the league, and they just have a penchant for these calls. But like you say, those two calls against Eugene Sims, I mean, you cannot, I'm telling you, those calls were as bad as they possibly get. I mean, even Mike Pereira, when they went to the replay, they went right to Mike Pereira. I mean, even Moose Johnson, who is everybody knows he's a big Cowboy hunk because, that's his team. He won Super Bowls for him. He knew that was a bad call. I mean, when was the last time you ever saw a guy get called for holding, but he makes a sack? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I think the NFL has to do a better job of evaluating these officials because you cannot take the game away from the players. I mean, this is football, okay? Tapping a quarterback on the shoulder does not constitute a roughing the passer penalty. I mean, the NFL, I guess they up to the eyeballs and all the scandal and whatnot. They need to also keep an eye on these officials because these guys, they practice, they spend a lot of time preparing for the game. And in a close contest like that, okay, Ishmael, I think anywhere between 1 and 4 points. All it takes is one bad call, and that takes your game away. And it's unfortunate that this happened to the Rams, but this continues to keep happening to them because they have a long history of being one of the most undisciplined teams in the league. So to a degree, they bring that on themselves.
And I don't buy that. I think as an official, and we're all human, so, there's going to be some of that plays into that. But as an official, you need to do your best to officiate the game that's there. And so to continuously see such bad calls, because even when you look at the 49ers, they've been penalized just about as much as the Rams this season. They're one of the better teams in the NFL. But I think the rules, number one, are so bad when you talk about protecting the quarterback. It's almost like anytime you see a quarterback get hit solid, it's a penalty. And they figure out what the penalty is later. It's like, throw the flag, he hit him hard. All right, let's figure out what the penalty is. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to figure out a way to not, if you are going to be like that, get a quarterback some more pads. Let him wear more pads or something. Because right now it's ridiculous. But for the Rams, I mean, they're already a team who is trying to get up out of the basement. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2004. They're working hard. So to see them continually run into this issue with penalties, excessive penalties, I think they were penalized like 100.
Yeah, I mean, 8 penalties. Yeah. I mean, Dallas only had 3 penalties for 15 yards. The Rams had 8 penalties for 119 yards. I mean, that's a huge disparity, okay? Because Kendall Langford was getting hog-tied all afternoon long. I mean, there was a couple times where you saw Robert Quinn get tackled to the turf, and nothing was called for that. None of that stuff was called. But I think that with the Rams as a whole, they can't afford these penalties anyway because the margin of error for them is none. It's not even, it's 0. This team can't afford these penalties. So that's where the perception part comes in. I mean, that's why I feel that way. Because they don't have no margin for any error. I mean, look at Jared Cook. Drop the pass, then he pushes the quarterback, and thank goodness, you got a lead on that team like William Hayes, and grabbing his chest. But this is a problem. This has been a problem with Jared Cook since he got here. You can't trust him. You can't trust him to catch the ball. I mean, these guys got to do better.
Oh, yeah, he would have had a quick seat on the bench for me. You push the quarterback, all right, sit down here.
I'm surprised, I'm surprised that Jeff Fisher didn't send him to the locker room because that's where when you see stuff like that, that's what get a team to kind of start to just go to hell in the handbasket, because then you got guys, fighting each other, and you can't have it because that young man right there, Austin Davis, is trying to do something positive with this team.
Yeah, and Austin Davis credit, after the game, he said it's not an issue. We talked about it. We were both, heated, or he was heated. It's squashed. It's no big deal. So you got to give him credit for being mature enough to not really let that bother him. But yeah, I think that was a pretty Bush League move by Jared Cook.
Absolutely.
But for me, and I'm not one who really likes to blame the refs. Again, the Rams have enough issues on their own.
Yeah.
But for me, the 3 worst plays of that game were those 2 calls against Eugene Sims and that drop pass by Jared Cook in the end zone.
Yeah, and then you throw in the snap. You throw the bad snap in. So, you know what I'm saying? Because the Cowboys scored immediately. And listen, while we talking about that, the other thing is that, listen, on defense, they were awful. They were just absolutely awful. Poor gap assignment. Guys overrunning their lanes and stuff. And again, here we go back to the quarterback of the defense, Mr. Larry Nice, Mr. 55. Every time the season starts, he always had his 3 to 4 game funk. And again, where was he? Well, he gets so, it's like when the ball is snapping, the Rams defensive line start crashing down, it's like he's pretty much standing behind either Kellen Langford or whoever's playing nose tackle position. And then he gets sucked so far in, he gets sucked in so far in, he can't even help out because he gets submerged in the trenches. Whereas that you want your middle linebacker, you expect your linebacker to at least read the play, and even if he cannot, shred your guard that's trying to block you, he can at least maintain him and contain it and stretch it out and funnel that guy to the sideline, because that's what you're taught in football. Even if you cannot make the tackle, at least try to funnel the player towards the sideline and use the sideline as defender, or string them out low enough so the other help can come on the backside. And they're not doing that. I mean, as soon as the ball's high, it's just like their heads are cut off and they're just chasing the football instead of maintaining their lanes and trusting the guy behind them to do their job. But everybody's trying to be Superman instead of just doing your job as itself. And that's the reason why they was looking at the back of DeMarco Murray jersey for the second half. You know what I'm saying? Poor gap assignment. And listen, this is not the first year these guys have been in the system. This is the 3rd year they're in the system. This is the same principles, but they're not doing it right. And I don't understand why they're not doing it. And they still, listen, they're not getting no pressure with 4 people. So why the hell are you just going to rush 3 people and drop 8 in the coverage? It doesn't make any damn sense. You know what I'm saying? Just simplify it. Simplify it. You get 4 guys rushing upfield. Okay, give yourself the best opportunity to do it. I haven't seen no stunts at all. They just hell-bent on just pinning their ears back and rushing upfield that way. Again, bending the pocket this way instead of pushing it like that. I don't know.
Well, I think part of that was devised specifically for Tony Romo because his escapability, so they wanted to leave guys back to try to deal with him, because we have seen them run a little more blitzes against other opponents. So I don't know. For me, I thought the Rams, they played a solid game. They made too many mental mistakes, but I thought they played a solid game. And you talked about it before. The Rams scored 31 points this game in a loss. But looking at what they've done in the past, if they scored 31 and they have entertaining games like this, even as disappointing as the ending was, I'm okay with that. I just hated seeing them, when they struggle to score 9 points, 12 points, 15 points. So the fact that we have a quarterback now and an offense that's leading us to score more points, to run the ball better, to get the ball in the receiver's hands, that is encouraging. But as they say, it's no moral victories in football.
I mean, listen, there are none. I mean, but like I said, you come out of the game with some things to be encouraged about from an offensive standpoint, because I wasn't expecting side of the offense. And I mean, listen, what we saw, that doesn't mean that Schottenheim's going to call another great game like that again. That's not guaranteed. I mean, he needs muscle memory. When you have muscle memory, you can be able to repeat the same good result on a regular basis. I mean, look at the reverse. Muscle memory. He just got to get the bad stuff out.
Hey, but Schottenheimer cannot catch that football for Jared Cook. And if Jared Cook would have caught that football, game over. Rams win. So
or they signed him in the first place. Hey, by the way, you see Greg Robinson? I mean, hey, boy, I mean, he did a great job. He looks real good on the sideline in the baseball hat. Yeah.
It is what it is, though, because you don't want to. I know you're big on rookies, especially high draftees, being out there and playing. But if they're not ready, they're not ready. You know, so I'd rather him be on the sidelines until he's ready to go, instead of being forced out on the field.
You talking about the number 2 pick overall, who had issues pass blocking, and that's a part of your job now.
But weren't you excited about that after the draft? Weren't you excited that they picked him?
I think we need to look at the tape. I mean, because I'm thinking that the idea was what they selling us is that, okay, we're going to draft them and plug it in. You don't draft nobody that high that you can't plug in. But then you look at Trey Mason, okay, and he's still having trouble picking up the blitz or even the playbook. But you get a hungry guy like Trey Watts, undrafted from Tulsa off the streets, and he makes a team, and he's playing. He's getting his reps. And I just think sometimes as an organization, listen, the Rams made some great picks. You know, Aaron Donald's looking pretty good right now. T.J. McDonald is looking good. I mean, they got some pieces, but some of these guys they are kind of whiffing on because they say, okay, we could draft this guy, but we coach him up. But if you drafted that high and you're not starting, that is a problem. That's a problem. That is a huge problem. Because they need playmakers. They need guys that can go out there and make plays. And listen, back to the defensive side, I'm telling you right now, they're going to need to upgrade at middle linebacker. Because Laurinaitis, he's a nice guy. That's the reason why nobody criticizes him. He's a nice guy. He is a nice guy. I mean, I like him. But they paying him Pro Bowl money. They paying him Pro Bowl money. You know what I'm saying? If you paying, would you rather pay $10 for a McDonald's cheeseburger, or would you rather pay? I mean, you know what I'm saying, $10 at Lumiere for a cheeseburger. I'm just telling you, it's a difference. They're not getting what they're paying for. They're not.
We'll see. I think if the Rams win, see Palmer, whenever they lose, then Palmer's like, I want everybody's job. Everybody got to go. Schottenheimer got to go. Laurinaitis got to go. Everybody got to go. But when they get that victory, then you're a little bit softer. So I think if they get a win here in the next upcoming weeks, I think we'll hear a different Palmer. You know, not calling for people's heads, not trying to.
Right. I'm gonna come in here with a pink cobra. With a pink cobra with pink lemonade dripping out the.
All right, so the Rams now have a bye week coming up. They won't play this game. After a bye week, they have the Philadelphia Eagles, which will be an interesting game. They're a very fast-paced team, an exciting team. I think we can probably wait really to go into depth on that, but, you know, do you think they have a shot against Philly after the break?
You know something? The Rams, and since Jeff Fisher has been here, and you really cannot really gauge what they're going to do. Games that we expect them to win, Minnesota, Tampa, and Dallas, you know, they struggle. And then just like last year, you know, they go on a roll. I mean, they break the brake pads off Indianapolis. You know, they break the brake pads off the Houston Texans. You know, they clobbered the Chicago Bears. But then, you know, and then they fought Seattle tooth and nail. But then, you know, they lay these clunkers and stinking up the joint. So you just never know. But a game against Philly, I'm telling you, I would be surprised if they go in there and beat them bad. Because that's how this team is. You know, they beat the teams that you don't expect them to beat. And even in adverse conditions like they won in Tampa. Because I didn't think they would beat Tampa because they were struggling so much. So that may be a game that they are very likely to win.
All right. Well, you got it there from Palmer. His pick. Rams go and blow out the Philadelphia Eagles. So we may have to come back. You said go to the tape. We have to go to the tape after that game. Anything else that you want to say before we go? Again, the Rams are off this week. They're going to have a little bit of rest. But what would you like to see them do, or what other thoughts do you have as they go into this bye week?
I mean, it's just real simple. I mean, simplify things. I mean, I just keep preaching that if guys are more disciplined on defense and stand in your run lanes, okay, you can be able to put your defense in more favorable positions, get teams to have to throw, and then, push teams towards what your strengths are. And then the other thing is that when you get teams in these third and long situations, I think they need to switch up the different type of pressure packages. I mean, whether you decide to send your corners, whether you decide to drop guys back, whatnot, I think they need to switch it up, Ishmael, be a little bit more unpredictable. And again, on offense, kill the sweep. Get rid of that little reverse to Kenny Britt. Stop doing it to Jared Cook. I mean, just stop it.
I think they just need to do quarterback sneaks.
You know what? I like that.
Just
that.
Give it to Austin Davis. Let him run with it. Every time they tackle him, it'll be a penalty.
Yeah, against the Rams.
He'll take a beating, but every play will get 15 yards.
And hey, how about this? Roger Saffold played an entire football game without getting hurt. So hey, I found another positive. there are some positives, man. I'm not that. I ain't know if that. Am I really that bad on when they lose?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're two different people. After a win, you're like, yeah, go. You're a cheerleader. Got the pom-poms out. After a loss, it's like everybody gotta go. Fire the vendor. Fire the man that sells the tacos.
Hey, but I have been consistent by Schottenheimer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fairly. We'll see. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in once again. I'm Ishmael Sistrunk here with Palmer Alexander III, and this is the Rams Roundup.